Alright, hello everyone. Today we'll be going over the creation of an app that we will call Camera Translate, and as the name suggests, this will be an app on focusing on using our camera and our device to read a word from the lens and then translate that given word into one out of 5 possible languages, such as Spanish, French, Italian, German, and Japanese. All we need for this project will be the use of an Android device or Android Studio, so let's begin. So to begin with, we first open up our Android Studio and then pick from there a new project. And then make sure that the thing is actually focusing on the project. So I'm going to click here, go on project, there you go. Okay, and from here, we will see different types of different templates that you could use for different possible projects that you want. But for this case, we're just going to be using the empty activity. So we're going to be using the empty activity just because this will let us start from scratch and eventually we can show what we're going to be adding in. So we're going to click next. Okay, and from here we have things like the name, the location, the file, just things of that nature like the SDK and the build configuration. So to explain it, for our name we can basically choose whatever you would like. So for the sake of simplicity, you could call it something like Camera Translate, because that's literally what the app is going to be about. The location, you just put it where it's convenient for you. So now here we have the SDK and then the build configuration. So we picked the SDK version as API 24, Android 7, just because it's the most compatible. It's also the most latest. It'll help us run with most versions that we choose. As you can see here in the bottom, it even shows like it'll run on approximately 98.6%. So it's very helpful in that regard. Then the build configuration, we choose Kotlin just because it's the most convenient, it's the most recommended just to build on. So after creating it, you'll see a little blue button here that says finish, and then from there you just basically create it. So for this project or this part of the PowerPoint, I am actually going to just cancel, and I'm going to go back into my original file I made, just because the process to create them is just a little bit long. And so I don't want to be wasting too much time just waiting for it. So here, let me see if I can go back and show you what the thing will look like once you create it. Okay, so here it is. Yeah, so after creating it, it will show the name of the file, where we placed it. Here I just placed it in one location in our device. And then we will see all these files inside the app. So for right now, we're just going to be focusing on like 3 or 4 files. So to begin with, we have an activity main file. We don't see it here currently, but the activity main file is basically like the layouts. It will describe how things should look on the screen, like buttons, text, images, layouts. It almost acts like the face of the app. But for here in our main activity file, we can actually see some of the code already put it on here. It basically acts like as the main central area of our app. So here we write the code and we can see how it behaves. Next, we have things like Android Manifest. So the Android Manifest is almost like the ID card of the app. It tells Android important information. Here, let me close this out. So yeah, like I said, it basically tells important information like what the app is called, what permissions it needs, important information, and like I said, the activities it has. Without the manifest, Android wouldn't know how to install or run the app. Lastly, we have things like build Gradles, Gradle scripts. We even have a piece right here. So this is basically like the build system for Android apps. It handles dependencies, meaning if we want to use libraries like translation or text-to-speech, Gradle is where we add them, and also decides how our app is packaged before being installed on a phone. You don't need to memorize all the details within this, but it is important to know where most of like the heavy stuff is coming from. Okay. Also, we can see here on the right side of the toolbar that we have things like running devices, device manager, Gradle, and then notifications. So here we also have on the right top here a sync project with Gradle files. So basically this means that after we write some code, like so let's hear where it says plugins, if we write something like AS, it'll currently say sync now, which basically means this one. That just means every time you make a change, you could sync it, almost compile it, you could say, and try to run it and see if there's any issues. And if there is, it'll usually throw up like a red flag showing you that there's an error here or there, and telling you where to focus your attention to. Okay, so now that we've explained what's happening, we're going to be looking back at the main activity file and what's happening. So here we see things like the class main activity and the component activity. This basically means that the class is an activity. So an activity is like a single screen on the app. This is like the entry point where the app opens. And then we have things like onCreate over here. So onCreate, this basically means the function runs when the activity is created. So like I said, think of it also as the starting point. So when the app opens. Next we have things like setContent. So setContent, this is where Compose comes in. I'll speak about Compose in a bit. We basically describe the user interface and sending it directly into Kotlin. And then right here at the bottom, we actually have our first add composable. Let me get rid of that. So this means that the function builds on part of the user interface. And we also have things like text that go with it. So the text is a composable that just displays the text on screen. So if it says something like hello name, for example, hello name, here we set it as the name as Android. So when we run it, it'll say something like hello Android. If we go next, we'll see like an add preview here at the bottom. So this just basically means that it lets us preview like the user interface inside the Android Studio without running it on a device. So that's why we have show background equals true. So we'll be able to currently see what's happening as we're working on it. Okay, and so for the last segment of this, I'll basically just show you what the device manager is, the emulation is. If I don't show it to you in this video, I might show it to you in another one just to show you like an example. We won't be using the emulator just because for this project we actually need a real device just so that we can use the camera. But basically, if you were ever to connect a device or use an emulation, you would go here to Device Manager, and then you would basically just pick one of the emulations. You don't have to choose these. Sometimes they already come with it. You would click here on the plus button, and you click Virtual Device. And from here, you would basically be able to see the types of version that you can use. Right now, we currently have, if this thing would load. Yeah, so you see it'll start loading the devices. It'll tell us at the top here, add a device. Here we could just choose our phones. We could also search for the type of phone we want. Or if not a phone, a tablet, a watch, a TV, things of that nature. We're just going to go ahead and click cancel. If we actually go to running devices, because it's not probably functional with the hardware, it might not react. So here you can clearly see that it doesn't tell us to, it's not responding. That's just because the hardware of the app just might be a little bit hard to run with. Just basically because right now I'm recording and I'm doing all this stuff, so that why my PC might not be able to handle the hardware. But I'll show you later in the next video what it would look like once it properly corrects. It would basically just say hello Android. Okay, and basically here, if you also click on the right side, you'll just basically see the running devices, which I previously had shown. You'll basically see it's just the home. Okay. Alright, and for that, I think we will end it here. So now that we have gone over some of the basics of Android Studio, the next part will basically be composed of showing what's going to be added to the code to actually make the app run. And there I'll be explaining what's been added and what changes I did to our app and the code, and then also showing you a rough preview of the app in action. So thank you for watching. Please feel free to like, comment, share, subscribe. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.